money right here in this case. You first call first, and that's what we got.
Good morning, Officer Robinson. You tell about the uniform you're wearing. You're now working over in Abbeville, South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
What is your rank there at the city of Abbeville?
A sergeant supervisor.
Supervisor road shift over.
Yes, sir.
How long you been a law enforcement officer, Sergeant Robinson?
About 18 years.
Went to the academy, got certified as an officer.
Yes, sir.
Back in July 2011, you were actually working at the city of Clement, correct?
Yes, sir.
At the Clement Department of Public Safety.
Yes, sir.
And your rank then was lieutenant.
Yes, sir, supervisor.
I believe shortly after that, you ran for sheriff of Lawrence County.
Yes, sir.
And you've gone since over to Hatfield.
Yes, sir.
July 13, 2011, you were on shift that night at the city of Clement, correct?
Yes, sir.
You were called out to Barrel State Road.
Yes, sir.
And what was the nature of that call?
A reference to a disturbance from a shooting that happened earlier that evening, that night.
Okay, did you have any names at that point of who you were looking for?
Benny Brown.
He was the suspect.
Yes, sir.
Shot his wife earlier in the night?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You drive to the scene in your patrol car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What kind of car were you driving at that time?
A white unmarked Crown Vic.
Unmarked, but did it have, some of the unmarked cars had blue lights in the window?
Yes, sir. In the windshield and in the grill.
Okay. Did you have your blue lights activated?
Yes,
when
sir.
you went through that time?
Yes, sir.
So they were on as you come down the road and pull into the house?
Yes, sir.
All right. After Florida State's 76. It's been a while, I know, with Sergeant Robinson, you've seen this diagram before at the scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the front of Benny Brown's. This is the house, and this is Barrel State Road, with that direction going back towards the exit on I-26.
Yes, sir.
And then this is the side road here, Annie Drive, that comes down on the right side of the house.
Yes, sir.
Based on this orientation, which one of the cars here on this diagram is represent your vehicle?
You too?
Okay, so this one right here, you too. And when you come that night, you come down Barrel State from this direction.
Yes, sir.
Left on this Annie Drive and park the car right there.
Yes, sir.
And you indicate you had the blue lights on.
Yes, sir.
And they remain on.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the jury, Sergeant Robinson, what you saw when you got out of the car? First thing you saw?
Well, when I arrived on the scene, Roger was parked in R2. As I was getting out of the car, I seen Roger out in front of the house, talking to, I guess, the family members or whoever, trying to get them to leave the scene at the time. And as I was getting out of my vehicle, I heard some gunshots go off. At that time, I looked around and I seen Roger.
Take your time, Sergeant Robinson.
After I heard the gunshot, I seen Roger fall, and he was trying to get up, and he reached up like he was trying to reach up on the tree and get himself up, and By that time, I had got myself positioned around the front of my vehicle, and he was looking at me as he was running, and I was telling him to come to the front of the vehicle, run to the front of the vehicle. And at the time he was running, he was saying, "I'm shot, I'm shot." And by the time he got to the front of my vehicle, by that time he had fell down on his knees.
Sorry, Rob, let me ask you another question. We'll go back a little bit to before you hear the shots.
Yes, sir.
You had gotten out of your car and observed what was going on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Who do you see out there in the front yard?
I really couldn't recognize anybody. No, Roger was out there, and as I was getting out my car and the shots run, I did notice Rico run past me, and I was telling everybody to just go around as I was directing Roger to come to the front of my vehicle. But I didn't recognize a lot of people out there. I just knew it was a crowd of people out there in the yard.
Okay, so you got out and saw the people in the yard, and you actually turned back to your car when gunshots were fired?
Yes, sir. I turned in there to get my AR out, which is an assault rifle.
You were getting out your assault rifle to help.
Yes, sir.
Clear the yard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because at that point, y'all's information was there was a suspect who was armed and dangerous.
Yes, sir.
Inside the house.
Yes, sir.
Right. Where? You can pull up States 30. All right, let's take it the next day there in the daytime. But your position over here on the right side of the house.
Yes, sir.
When you look over in the front yard, you say you see Roger out there, and he's in his uniform.
Yes, sir.
Whereabouts on here is he standing? Is he on the right side of the door or the left side as you're facing the
He was on the right side of the door, like close to that tree.
Okay, so somewhere between this tree.
Yes, sir.
And the door in front of these bushes.
Yes, sir.
About where my finger.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many people are standing around him at that point? And you don't give me exact.
It was, I can't tell you, it was a good many
There
people
were
out
several.
there. There was several people in that yard. Yes, sir.
But at that point, you would walk and saw the crowd. You couldn't really tell that he was standing there.
No, sir.
And after that brief moment where you turn back to your car, you hear gunshots.
Yes, sir.
And where you're standing, where do they hear? Where do you think they're coming from based on what you're hearing?
They were coming, sound like they were coming from the front of the house.
And how many shots are we talking?
I can't remember.
One
or two.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
More than one shot?
Yes, sir.
And you immediately, when you hear the sound, you turn your attention back to the front yard?
Yes, sir.
And it's at that point that you see Roger.
Yes, sir.
Reaching up in the air.
Yeah, I've seen him fall at that time and reaching up in there.
When you were driving into you obviously pass the front of the house, you go down Union Drive, and you get there, based on where you park. At any time from the time you get sight on the front of the house until the shots are fired, did you see anyone in that front yard with a gun in their hand?
No, sir.
Did you see anybody waving a gun around?
No, sir.
And you said you had some contact with people there. As you get there, you're trying to clear people out.
Yes, sir.
Did anybody tell you before those shots came from the front of the house?
No, sir.
Did anyone say there had been gunfire?
No, sir. No, sir.
When Roger gets to you, are you able to get him, help get him over to where you're going?
when Roger get to me and fell, I caught him and laid him back. At that time, I got on the radio and said, "Officer down, officer down," and I just stood guard over to make sure nothing else happened. And at that time, other officers come over and drug him behind my vehicle to safety.
Behind
On the right side of my vehicle. Yes, yes, sir.
Well, pull up states 25, please. Okay, Sergeant Robinson, you looking down Annie Drive, this is your vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there's this other car that's kind of stuck in the ditch there.
Yes, sir.
That was there as well?
Yes, sir.
That was not a law enforcement car?
No, sir.
States 26. This is the right side of your vehicle with the front yard and the back behind.
Yes, sir.
At that point, and this is taken later, Roger is laying here while y'all trying to render aid to him on this side of the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Okay, marker 11 here, on my finger is that would be, I guess, where blood there.
Yes, sir.
So he's laying with his feet this way, his body, his head.
Yes, sir.
All these things on the ground. Are you there with him as
Yes, sir.
other officers are trying to bring him?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you may have said this earlier, but I can't remember if you already indicated this. What did Roger say to you as he was reaching up and trying to hold him up?
When he reached up, he looked at me and he turned and I was looking at him eye to eye and he was saying, "I'm shot, I'm shot." And at that time he ran I just told him to come to the front of my vehicle and that's where he rested at, right there around 8 and 9. And I laid him down and called, say, "Officer down, officer down." That's when the other officer come around my vehicle and drug him back at the back to cover him. So.
And at that point, when he's on the ground, he lost consciousness, he was not responsive.
He wasn't responsive, no, sir.
Medicals and all.
Yes, sir.
No further questions. Please answer any questions of the council.
Yes, sir.
I know it's difficult for you to be here today under these circumstances, but I do need to ask you some questions.
Yes, sir.
I think you said there at the end that people were shouting officer down.
No, I was shouting
You were
officer
shouting
down. Yes, sir.
officer down.
I was keying up on Mike telling dispatch officer was down.
Okay, and you were being kind of loud doing that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I want to do is, I'm going to put what states are Defense Exhibit 64 on the screen. Now I've highlighted an area where U2 is. That was your vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And from your testimony a minute ago, it sounds like that you and Officer Deputy Rice arrived at about the same time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In fact, a number of y'all arrived at about the same time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And obviously, you didn't see what had happened before you were there?
No, sir.
Or could hear what happened
No,
before
sir.
you were there?
No, sir.
And when you got there, there were a number of people out in the front yard, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this was, you're not sure exactly how many people there were?
No, sir.
And you couldn't, from where you were, you couldn't hear what they were saying?
No, sir.
Or tell what they were doing?
No, sir.
But you know that Deputy Rice went into the yard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know whether Deputy Rice knew Benny?
No, sir, I don't know.
Or whether he knew any of the people in the yard?
No, sir, I don't know.
But you know he went in the yard to try to help from what you could
Yes,
observe.
sir.
Okay. Now, I'm going to put state or defense 128 up on the screen because that kind of, you recognize that as kind of a broader layout of the Barrel Stave Road and Drive area?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so if we were to kind of compare, well, this diagram, Defense Exhibit 64 diagram, and you would notice we use this with a number of witnesses, it's not to scale. And you can tell that comparing the photograph, right?
Not really.
Okay. This is Barrel Stave Road, and of course we can see Barrel Stave Road in the photograph, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this is Annie Drive, and you know if you look closely, you can see highlighted. You can kind of see where that sign, you can't really, well, you can read it a little bit. That's where the signpost for Andy Road is, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And you can see from that picture a shed kind of way back there, can't you?
Yes, sir.
All right. If we look at Defense Exhibit number 16, which is that's a photograph of your car, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and if you kind of compare it to the diagram, of course, these markers here got put out later, right?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Okay. But this is your car, and you can see that same shed right back over there. The one we showed in that picture is back here. You can see it back there, can't you?
I couldn't see it in the other one. Flip it back.
If you look right there, kind of enlarge that.
Can't compare with this.
Anyway, the point I'm getting at is there some things that are not on this diagram, right?
I don't know what you're asking.
Okay. Well, what I'm trying to get at is where they have your car marked on Defense Exhibit 4, you were actually a little further down Andy Road that way, weren't you?
I can't tell from how they draw that compared to the actual scene.
Okay. All right. It is a little confusing, isn't it? Now, as I understand it, when you got there and there was this group of people in the yard, it was a mix of men and women, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you got there, you didn't have a whole lot of time, because one of the things that happened was, I mean, you saw Deputy Rice, you saw him go in the front yard, right?
Yes, sir.
And you were in your car and you were reaching for your rifle.
Yes, sir.
And then shots started,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And that was real quick, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that happened in seconds, 2 or 3 seconds maybe.
Yes, sir.
And then the shots stopped.
Yes, sir.
And then you saw Deputy Rice in the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't actually see him when he got shot.
No, sir. I just seen him when he went down. So I seen he was shot. And then when he got up,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to-
and then when he got up, he was saying, "I'm shot. I'm shot."
And that's when you went to him and he started to fall again and you kind of helped him.
Yes, sir.
And then other officers helped you. And y'all got Deputy Rice back over here.
From the front of my vehicle back to the side of it. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you really, being out there and all of this happening, you really weren't part of the investigation, were you?
No, sir.
Okay. I beg the court's indulgence for a moment. Thank you for being here. I know it was difficult. Thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome, sir.
Nothing on there.
Sir, thank you. You may step down. You're free to go. All right, next witness, please.
Casey Jones.
Some clarify that the testimony about the this case is referring to the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, ma'am.
Morning, Lieutenant Jones.
Morning.
Work for the City of Clinton Department of Public Safety, correct?
That's correct.
You are a lieutenant there.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been with Clinton?
I've been employed there since 2006.
And you're now in a supervisory role there.
Yes, sir. I work in uniform patrol.
Okay, you supervise a shift.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Lieutenant Jones, you were working the night of July 13th, 2011, right?
Yes, sir.
And you have pretty good memories of that night?
Yes, sir.
Good and bad memories.
Yes, sir.
You were called out to Barrel State Road.
Yes, well, we went there to assist the sheriff's office.
It was the sheriff's office, county, located close to the city.
Yes, sir. It's not too far outside of the city limits.
What was the information you were getting at that time?
We received information that Benny Brown was at his residence and was a suspect in a murder case.
And the indication you were getting is that he was at home and potentially going to danger.
Yes, sir.
If you could, Lieutenant Jones, tell the jury what you were driving when you got to the residence.
I was in a fully marked Dodge Charger.
And you have your blue lights activated,
Yes, sir. We ran blue lights all the way there.
so you run code all the way to the scene.
Yes, sir.
Where'd you park when you got there?
I actually parked, if you're coming from 56 North, we took a right on Barrel State, and I actually parked just past Andy Drive.
Okay, so Pat passed in front of the house, just past Andy Drive, and then pulled off on the right or the left
I
side?
was on the left-hand side.
Pull your patrol car on the left-hand side.
On the same side of the road as Mr. Brown's house.
Were your blue lights still activated when you got out of the car?
To my knowledge, yes, sir.
And you tell the jury, Lieutenant Jones, what you see as you walk towards Benny Brown's house?
Sure. As I passed the house, I observed a group of people in the front yard. I observed Deputy Rice had parked his vehicle there in the front yard, had his blue lights on, was kind of angled facing the front of the residence, along with it was Investigator Plaxco with the sheriff's office. He was in a unmarked F-150, I believe, and Lieutenant Robinson had parked just down Annie Drive. I exited my patrol car, started walking towards Deputy Rice's vehicle, and was actually in between his vehicle and Investigator Plaxco's, and had made it to about the front of those vehicles. I observed Deputy Rice out in the front yard, and he'd engaged a crowd of people. From what I could best tell, it looked like he was trying to, clear them out of the yard. It happened extremely fast. Like I said, I had time to walk from my vehicle to the yard, and Mr. Brown came outside the front of his residence and began firing towards the right-hand side of his residence and that crowd of people.
Okay, you said towards the right-hand side of your face.
As you're facing the house, yes, sir. He was right there in the door frame and turned back towards that direction.
Okay, so he comes out, he's actually shooting towards his left.
Yes, sir, that'd be right. That'd be
Facing the
correct.
house.
Right.
Where was Deputy Roger Rice standing at that time?
He was probably 15 foot or so in front of me, roughly. But he was more towards the right-hand side of the house, looking at it from the street.
I'm going to pull up a picture here in front of the house and give you a reference point.
Yes, sir.
You say 15, 20 feet. So
Yeah, and he was in front of me. He would have actually been just to the left, maybe a little bit, towards the, go to the left some.
Okay.
He would have been, go to the left a little further, probably in that area and out towards the open part of the yard.
So in here, probably 15, 20 feet out from the bushes.
Somewhere along in there would be fairly accurate.
And the shooting's coming back across the crowd, kind of in your direction.
Yes, sir, that's exactly correct.
But at that point, you're standing. Well, Phillips says,
I was just right there on the front right corner of Investigator Plaxco's
you're all the
vehicle.
way in front of the truck on
Yes.
the right side. You got a good view there, facing down towards.
Yes.
Shots are coming from the front door. Benny Brown's in the door frame, shooting back towards you.
Yes, sir.
And what happened after that? Did you see Deputy Rice? What happened to him?
Yes, sir. All the gunfire was probably exchanged. I believe there were two other officers there that exchanged fire with Mr. Brown. But the shooting probably only lasted just several seconds. It was a barrage of gunfire. I'd seen Deputy Rice turn back towards me and towards the right-hand side of the house and start to run, and I'd seen him fall. I then seen him get up, and he ran down towards Lieutenant Robinson's vehicle.
And when you see this, Deputy Rice still have his gun holstered.
Yes, sir. He never drew his weapon. Not that I saw.
And were you able to help render aid, Lieutenant Brown?
Yes, sir. I heard Lieutenant Robinson yell out that he had an officer down. I had moved over to the driver's side of Investigator Plaxco's vehicle. There's a large tree just off the picture to the left that I took a point of cover while Investigator Plaxco went back into his vehicle briefly to get his ballistic vest and extra magazines. I then made my way back down to Lieutenant Robinson's vehicle and provided cover there from the rear of his vehicle with my rifle, while other officers rendered aid to Roger.
You were covering with your rifle
Yes.
while the other officers were
Yes.
performing CPR.
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant Jones, I'm going to go back to just get a little more detail from you on when you're walking from your car towards this direction and you get to the front of the Plaxco's truck.
Yes.
As As you're walking in that direction, you have a good view in front of the house.
Reasonably, yes. I'd say so.
Did you see anyone in or amongst that crowd pointing a gun at anyone?
No, sir.
Did you see anyone in that crowd waving a gun in the air?
No, sir.
Did you hear the gunshots fired before Benny Brown comes out the door and starts shooting?
No, sir.
From your perspective, what is Deputy Rice doing in the yard before the shots coming out that front door?
Like I said, the best I could discern, it looked like he'd engaged that crowd and was trying to get them out of the yard into, I would assume, a place of safety.
You said your blue lights were on.
Yes, sir.
Had Officer Shane Fraker pulled up at that point?
Just prior to the Mr. Brown coming outside the front of his residence, Shane Prather, who's an officer with me at Clinton, had just pulled up and parked in the front of the residence on the roadway. To my knowledge, he had his blue lights on.
He was working on your shift?
Yes, well, Shane, myself, and Eric Robinson were all working together on the shift.
And one of the guns returning fire back towards the house was Sergeant Fraker?
That's correct, along with Investigator Plaxco.
Were you in full uniform?
Yes.
You approached the house?
Yes,
How about Roger Rock?
yes, sir.
Shane Fraker, was he in uniform?
Yes, sir.
How about Lieutenant Robinson?
Yes, sir. The only one that wasn't in, regular full uniform would have been Investigator Plaxco.
And he was in his truck?
Yes, sir. He was in his county-issued vehicle.
All the other vehicles were either marked or unmarked with blue lights?
Yes.
But of course, it was.
Yes.
Now, to the right of Lieutenant Plaxco's truck, Investigator Plaxco is a patrol car marked, that's a Martin County car.
Yes, sir. That would have been Deputy Rice's vehicle.
Okay. And were there any kind of lights, blue lights or spotlights or anything that you remember coming from his vehicle?
Yes, sir. I know he had his blue lights on, and I want to say he had his spotlight on.
The spotlight being on the right that toward the south?
I believe it was his light was mounted right there on the doorpost, at the driver's doorpost. I want to say it was shining back towards the house,
Okay, back towards this direction, towards the front.
towards the front of the house. Yes, sir.
Did you have any problems seeing things that were going on in the front yard?
No, sir. With our patrol vehicles, if I recall, the headlights were on Investigator Plaxco's vehicle along with Rogers. The front yard was fairly well illuminated.
Do you have any indication as you walked up to the scene before the shots were fired, either by observation or by anybody yelling anything out, that there had been gunshots before that point?
No, sir. I'm not aware of it.
Thank you, Lieutenant Jones. Please answer any questions.
I know it's probably difficult to be here today, but I do need to ask you some questions. And I appreciate you answering for me. I'm going to put State's Exhibit 64 on the screen. This is the diagram that we've been talking about using a lot, and I think you can just ask some questions for that. As I understand it, a lot of you all arrived at about the same time, right?
That's correct.
And so you would have been coming down Barrel State Road.
From 56 north.
Right. So if you're looking at it, you know, it's from the left side moving towards the right side. And as I understand it, Officer Robertson came down Annie Drive. Is that right?
That's correct.
And your vehicle's not pictured on this diagram?
No, sir. It would be just to the right, just right directly past Annie Drive.
All right. So it's on the other side of Annie Drive.
Yes.
They're not really that far from where Deputy Rice was during what's marked P2 and Q1, which was Officer Plaxico.
That's correct.
Okay. And so Mr. Robinson, Deputy Rice, Mr. Plaxico, Mr. Craver, you all arrived at about the same time.
Yes.
And obviously, you don't know what happened before you got there.
No, sir. I wasn't there.
Couldn't see it, couldn't hear it.
That's correct.
All right. Did you later learn that there were statements from people that others were shooting before you arrived?
I wasn't a part of the investigation outside of what initially happened there.
Okay, fair enough. And as I understand it, you immediately sort of walked up between Deputy Rice's car and Lieutenant Plaxico's truck.
That's correct.
All right. And the shots happened, correct?
Yes.
And they happened real quickly.
Yes.
All right. Since you weren't part of the investigation, you weren't part of marking any of these items.
No, sir.
So you don't know what 28 or 29 or items 31.
No, sir.
That would be for somebody else to testify.
That's correct.
You do recall that there was a large crowd of people in the yard.
There was a crowd, I'd say, roughly a dozen people. Just rough number. I didn't have time to count.
Right, because it happened so fast.
Correct.
And you say approximately a dozen, and they were a mix of men and women.
That's correct.
And you couldn't hear what they were saying.
No, sir, not right off. I don't recall any specific statements made.
Right, before the gunfire.
Correct.
And what you do know is that Roger Rice went down there, correct?
Yes.
And you don't really know what went through his mind to go down there.
No, sir, I couldn't answer that.
You don't know if he knew anybody in that crowd
Couldn't answer that either.
or if he knew Benny Brown.
No, sir.
But he was trying to clear that crowd.
That was my perception, yes, sir.
Okay. And so you don't know if there had been any arguing or confrontations in that crowd before you got there, did you?
No, sir, I'm not aware of that.
Right. You weren't there, can't talk.
Right.
Beg of course indulgence for a moment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here and thank you for answering my question.
Sir, thank you very much. I think you are pretty good for the staff and your issues. Solicitor, call your next witness.
State calls Robert Plaxico to the stand.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony about you in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Morning, Mr. Plaxico.
Morning.
You were a retired law enforcement officer.
I am now.
Okay. How
Yes.
many years did you work?
All total of 40.
And were all of those here in Lawrence County?
No, sir, I did a short stint on the highway patrol in 1978 in Florence County.
And after that, came back to
Yeah.
work here in Lawrence.
Yeah, I started with the city of Clun in 1975.
When did you go over to work with the sheriff's department?
In the early 90s.
And so you worked with the sheriff's office from the early 90s until you retired?
Yeah, I think it was 23 years, somewhere in that neighborhood.
back down in Joanna now. correct?
Oh, yeah.
Working at the fire department now?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Plaxico, you were working at the sheriff's office in July 2011, correct?
Yes, sir.
And were you on call or on shift or anything that night on July 13th?
No, sir. I had been out in my truck just doing some different things and had the radio on and heard the call when they were first started looking for him in Fountain Inn, and was aware that it was happening. And then later on in the night, I heard on the radio that they thought he was at home, and there was a good many deputies that were headed that way. And I got my gun and told my wife I'd be back.
So you were listening to the radio traffic there at your
Yes,
house
sir.
that night?
I was actually on vacation, taking some vacation days.
And being the experienced officer you were, when you hear on the radio that you may be at his house, where was his house?
There on Barrel Stave Road, up there out of Clun off 56 North.
Okay. So not far from where you are living down there?
No, it wasn't far.
About how long did it take you to get from your house out there to Barrel Stave?
5-10 minutes. It's not long.
You drove your truck?
I did.
Now, when you pull up, you, let me see states. Just give you a record. This map's not scaled, obviously. Lieutenant Burgess Plaxico, take a look at it. Okay. You pull in coming, I'm assuming from the interstate, down Barrel State.
I did.
Pull into Annie Drive. Is this your truck?
It is.
You one? All these little markers around.
It is.
So when you pull in, you're facing back towards the front of the house.
Yes, sir.
Okay, when you get out of your truck, can you tell the jury, Mr. Plaxico, what you see?
Well, there were 5 of us went there. The one unmarked and the other marked cars passed me, and I was the last one in. And I parked right there by Deputy Rice's, which I thought was a good tactical advantage on the front of the house. I looked at the front of the house as I came by, and all I seen was a crowd of people to the right of the front door. When I parked, Deputy Rice was already down at that crowd of people, and he was talking to them. And just as I opened my door and got out in the apex of the door, I saw a black male come out the front door of the house with a gun and start shooting. I drew my service revolver and shot back. Everybody ran, and the only thing I can tell you is when I quit shooting, he wasn't there on the front step, on the front stoop anymore.
You shot multiple times? back towards
I
the
think I
front.
run it dry, to tell you the truth, because I had to hunt some more bullets.
Okay, so you emptied the gun.
I got scared. Yes, sir, I'll tell you that now.
You were in fear.
I was.
He was shooting back towards you.
Yes, sir.
You saw Deputy Rice down there in the front of the house.
Yes, sir.
Engaging the people that were in the front. Right?
Yes, sir.
And did he have his gun drawn?
No, sir.
How was he dressed?
In full uniform.
And did you see anyone in that crowd, Mr. Plaxico, from your vantage point holding a gun?
I did not.
Did you see anybody from your vantage point pointing a gun?
I did not.
Was there anyone waving one around in the air?
No, sir.
Did you hear any shots?
No, sir.
You say you had just got out of your car, so you haven't had a conversation with him.
No, sir. I know it took a while And EMS finally came down, and some people came up behind me, and somebody said they'd been shot. And I told them they either need to take cover or go on up the road down. They should have been up the road somewhere. And
And who described the person who had been shot?
it was a black male, is all I can tell you. And so then EMS came around behind me, because I stayed where I was, because the subject was still in the house and we didn't know if he was going to come back out again shooting or not. And EMS went down, and then they came out with Roger, with Deputy Rice, and left. And then at some point in time, Mr. Brown called up to dispatch and wanted to know if he could give up. I think said he'd been shot. And we told, or somebody told him to come out the front door. And he came out and gave up. And they handcuffed him and laid him right there in front of the front steps of the house. And he was shot, I think, in his left hip area. And
Did you hear him say anything?
well, I walked over there and identified myself to him, and there were two deputies there with him, and I asked them had he been Mirandized, and they said he had. And due to experience over the years, I learned that it helped the EMS to know what caliber gun somebody was shot with, so I asked him what caliber gun he had used, and I told him he had shot a deputy sheriff, and he said he was shooting a .357 Magnum. And I asked him where the gun was, and he said he didn't know. He just threw it in the front door when he got shot.
And at that point, he's laying down on the ground and handcuffed.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, gunfire's coming, you fire back. Once the scene is secure, as far as gunfire, subject in custody, where did you go after that?
I just stayed around in the road. My truck was there. I didn't have any way to go anywhere. It was inside the crime scene tape. And I just stayed around and talked to some sled agents when they got there.
So you stayed there on the scene until the scene had been worked during the night by
Pretty
someone?
much.
And that's because your truck was there, right?
Yes, sir. I didn't have any way to go.
You go and hand over your gun to sled?
I did.
And that was for the purpose of them collecting it?
Yeah, for ballistics or whatever.
This has been secured for court purposes. But hang this, I'll let you take a look at it.
Yes, sir. That's mine.
Looks like a gun there.
Yes, sir.
That states 85 for record. And that's the weapon you fired back at the house that night.
It is.
Of course, the clip's taken out. You had reloaded the bullets, right?
Yeah, that was another clip I had in the truck there. And I guess the first clip was probably dry. There's nothing in
Be
it.
that.
Yes, sir.
After the initial shootout, you didn't have to discharge a weapon again.
No, sir.
Did you work with Deputy Rice before that night?
Yeah, I knew him. He'd been up in the office several times talking to an investigator. Me and him were office mates, and yeah, I knew him.
What kind of officer was he?
He's good. I think he.
Objection, John, or leave it at that. Place to visit opinion of the officer in the manner in which he conducted himself, conducted himself professionally, that he thinks he can answer to that.
I believe I heard that when he went to the police academy, he did real well there. And, you know, in my general opinion, he was a good police officer.
Okay, your observations that night,
He was doing what he needed to do.
Good job.
Yes, sir.
No further questions at this time. Please answer your questions.
Ross?
probably difficult to be here today since you do Deputy Rice, but I have to ask you some
I
questions.
understand.
As I understand that you were at home when you heard the information that they were looking for Benny Brown.
Well, I was actually in my truck doing some, doing some stuff when I heard the initial incident happened up in Fountain Inn.
Okay. Then later on, when you
Yeah.
heard that they were looking for Benny,
Yeah.
you were going towards.
Yeah, that they had thought he was at his house, and there were units gonna go up there.
All right. And I think you said that 5 of you all responded.
There were 5 of us went there at the same time,
Right.
together, the first group,
Right. And that was the group that was there
when the shooting happened.
when the shooting happened. Now, you also had information come over dispatch that there was a group of people in the yard.
Yeah, I think they said there was a group of people out there, and that's why Roger knew, or Deputy Rice knew when he got there, that's what he went down there to do, was get them out of the yard,
And I think you said the 5 of you all arrived at the same time.
pretty much.
Right. And you were the last one to pull in. I think.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I'm going to put Defense Exhibit 64 and Defense Exhibit 5 on the screen. This is your truck here, isn't it?
It is.
And the police officer in the car is Deputy Rice.
It is.
And you can see the house down there.
Yes, sir.
And about the time you got out of your car was when the shot started.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, right before that happened, you were able to observe that there were people in the yard,
Yes, sir.
and that Deputy Rice had gone down there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when Benny shot, you returned fire immediately,
I did.
right? And I think that you said, it really happened fast, that you just emptied your clip.
I did.
And that's what they were just talking about when they showed the clip out of the box.
Yes, sir.
And you realized that once you finished firing, that Benny had gone back inside.
Yes, sir.
Right. And of course, you know that the officers helped Deputy Rice out of the yard.
Yes, sir.
And I think that you said that Benny eventually called and said that he wanted to negotiate a surrender.
Yes, sir.
And you went up to where he was on the ground.
Yes, sir.
And you asked if he'd been given his Miranda warnings.
I did.
And one of the other officers there told you that he had.
Yes, sir.
And you provided information to Benny in that conversation, did you?
I did.
And you were the one that told Benny that he had shot a police officer.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Benny, you wanted to know what type of gun that Benny had.
Yes, sir.
And he told you the type.
Yes, sir.
And you wanted to know where it was.
Yes, sir.
And he told you he wasn't sure, but it was in the house.
Yeah, he said he just threw it in the door. So,
And you know that they ultimately found his gun inside the house.
yeah.
Okay. Now, there was some questions about uniforms, Deputy Rice being in his uniform. And when we're talking about being in a uniform, the Lawrence uniforms are dark shirts, right?
Yes, sir.
And dark pants.
Yes, sir.
And dark boots.
Yes, sir.
And of course, it was dark out there that night.
It was.
You remember if Deputy Rice was wearing a ball cap?
I do not.
But if he was, it would have been a dark ball cap.
It would have.
Because that's what the agency uses.
Yes, sir.
And obviously, you can't talk about what happened before you got there.
No, sir.
You can't talk about what was done before you got there.
No, sir.
You couldn't hear anything before you got there.
No, sir.
And from your experience, having discharged your weapon, you knew that there was going to be an investigation. That's just procedure.
Yes, sir.
And of course, there was all this other reason there that night to investigate.
Yes, sir.
And so your involvement was basically done after Benny was arrested.
It was.
And so when it came time to, document what had gone on out there on Barrel State Road, you weren't part of that.
No, sir.
Right? And so you can't really talk about what any of these markers would be.
No, sir.
That would be for the person who was there. When
Yes,
that
sir.
happened. Now, I'm almost done, but I want to go back to one of the things that you said on direct when you first pulled up there. And obviously you have a lot of experience. You've been in policing for a long time. Correct?
Correct.
And you said that this area on fence number 5 where you parked, you thought was a good tactical point for you to park.
Yes, sir.
Right. And Barrel State Road is elevated up above the front yard.
It is.
Right. And so you can, I mean, these pictures are two-dimensional, but you can kind of sort of see that it slopes down towards the house.
Yes, sir.
And then being on sort of the corner was also part of your decision. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes, sir.
All right, so elevated and off to the side.
Yes, sir.
Take the course of darkness for a moment. Since you have so much experience, just a couple more questions. Did you or anybody hear an order given to try to keep all of the civilians that were there so that they could be interviewed then as part of the investigation?
No, sir.
Right. And if, from your investigative experience, if you were going to try to determine if somebody had shot a gun, one way to do that is by collecting GSR,
It is.
gunshot residue.
Yes, sir.
They have kits for that.
Yes, sir.
And you take swabs from people's hands.
Yes, sir.
And the front, top side, and the
Yes, sir.
hand side. And that can be sent to SLED for analysis.
Yes, sir.
Did you see anybody trying to get gunshot residue?
I did not.
From Chris Brown or?
I did not. No.
Neither one of them?
No.
Thank you for answering my question.
Yes, sir.
I know it's a difficult day for you.
Just a couple more reasons.
Go ahead, please.
During this time, Mr. Gross was just referring to after you returned fire, how long was this standoff? I guess, for lack of a better term, with Benny's in the house and y'all have security?
I don't know. Maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know. I don't have a clue.
During that time, he apparently made a call to 911.
Yeah. Yeah, we tried to put somebody around in the backyard to, surround the house to make sure he didn't get away because we didn't know he was shot.
So at that point, it was still a volatile situation.
It was.
You didn't want witnesses hanging around inside the crime scene at that point, correct?
Nah, the only thing, when they came up behind me, the one that had been shot, and I think a lady, I told them they needed to go up the road or either take cover, but go up the road where the ambulance was,
So you didn't tell them to stay, you actually
No,
told them you didn't
I
leave.
told them they need to get out from behind me.
At that point, nobody's interested in taking GSR of the kids.
No, sir.
Mr. Gross also asked you about Deputy Rice's uniform, what he was wearing. The background is dark blue, correct?
It is.
Aren't there, correct me if I'm wrong, shiny gold stars on the shirt and the hat though?
Yes, sir. There's some shine there.
Okay, but they're a bright gold color.
They
that
are.
reflects.
I know Lieutenant Crane back there dressed out in his uniform right now.
You didn't have any problem recognizing that Roger was in here?
No, sir.
No further questions?
Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Supposed to call you next. Everybody answer this.
It's almost clear over the testimony about me in this case, where you hold for no electricity.
All right, Mr. Prater, you with Clinton Department of Public Safety,
Yes, sir.
and how long have you worked there?
Since 2009.
Okay. So 2011, you would have been in that department about 2 years, is that right?
That's correct.
And do you recall the night of July 13th, 2011?
I do.
Did you have an occasion to respond to 545 Barrel State Road?
Yes, I did.
And what was the purpose of going there?
To assist Lawrence County with trying to find Mr. Benny Brown, who had been involved in murdering his wife or girlfriend, Ms. Nicole Kingsborough.
Okay. So you had that information that he was a suspect in that murder,
That's correct.
and then you went to his house because why? Did you got information he would be home?
Be at home, that's correct.
You remember about what time you arrived at his house?
I want to say it was around 10:30ish, give or take.
Okay. And what were you driving?
A black Crown Vic, fully marked.
Okay. Does that light bar up top?
It does.
Did you have the blue lights on?
I did.
And do you recall who was there when you arrived?
When I first pulled in, Roger was standing in the front yard, talking with a couple people. Lieutenant Robinson was pulling down Annie Drive. I saw Deputy Plattsco, Investigator Plattsco, pulling into Annie Drive and parking beside Roger's car, and Casey Jones parking in front of Annie, right at Annie Drive.
Is it fair to say that you all kind of arrived about the same time?
Yes, that's correct.
And P1 would represent your Crown Vic?
That's correct.
Okay, you said as you're pulling up, you see
You too.
U2. That's whose car?
That's Lieutenant Robinson's car.
Okay, did you know whether or not he had his blue lights on?
He did.
Okay. And P2 would be Rogers' automobile?
That's correct.
And it was already there when you arrived?
It was.
Okay, and then you saw Plaxico pull up as well?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall whether or not Deputy Rice had his blue lights on?
I do remember seeing his blue lights on. He also had his spotlight on him
Okay.
on the side of his car.
His car was facing towards the house?
That's correct.
Okay. And you said as you pulled up, you immediately could see Deputy Rice in the yard all the way out to Barrel State Road?
Yes.
And did you have any difficulty seeing Roger out there?
I did not.
And, I mean, did you have any difficulty noticing that he was a uniformed officer?
No, sir, I did not.
You're saying that you could, in fact, see that it was, were you familiar with Roger Rice before?
I'd met him a couple times, but knowing anything about him, I didn't know.
Okay, but your testimony that the yard was illuminated at least enough for you to recognize Roger Rice standing out there?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you just said he was out there with a couple people. Do you remember approximately how many people he was out there with?
Just rough guess, 6 or 8.
Okay. All right, and did you note anybody out there with a drawn pistol?
I did not.
Okay. While you were there, did you, well, before Benny came out, did you hear any gunshots?
I did not.
Okay. What did you perceive when you looked out there and saw Deputy Rice out there with the people? Did it appear that, what was he doing?
It appeared to me that he was trying to get people out of the yard, especially due to the nature of the call. Mr. Brown being a suspect in a homicide, he could be armed. Didn't know if he was waiting to ambush or what may happen.
Okay. When you pulled up and looked, tell me what you noticed as far as the front of the house, specifically the front doors.
I noticed that the both doors were shut. When I say both doors, there's a excuse me, the wooden door and a full glass screen door. and both of those were actually shut and intact.
Okay. You say a glass screen door, you mean like a storm door?
Storm door, that's correct.
But it had a glass front to it?
It did. It was full glass.
Okay. And then behind the glass door, there was a larger wooden door?
Yes,
What, if anything, do you remember about the wooden door?
it was shut.
All right, and as you pulled up and parked your car, tell us what happened next.
As I pulled up and parked, due to the nature of the call, I reached, excuse me, to my passenger seat where my patrol rifle was laying, which is an AR style patrol rifle, M16 type, people that don't know. I reached over and got it. As I was opening my door, I stood up to go to step out, and at that time I heard shots being fired, and I looked up and I see Mr. Benny Brown standing in his front door engaging the crowd. At that time is when I flipped my safety off my rifle and engaged Mr. Benny Brown.
Okay. How many times did you fire? Do you remember?
7 times.
This is your car, and this is the front of your car, is that correct?
That's correct.
You would have gotten out, I guess the driver's side would have been facing the house.
Facing the house.
Okay, so about how long after you opened the door?
I just got my left foot on the ground when I heard the shots going off from Mr. Benny Brown.
Tell me about where did you see Deputy Rice along with the group of people he was talking about?
To my best recollection, it would have been out around. The picture there is really not to scale, and it's hard to really, for me to really pinpoint it. But to my recollection, it would have been roughly around the front of R2, or which would be the rear of R2. Would be in this area.
So you're describing, it is not to scale. I mean, it says it right there. But you're saying in this general vicinity is where the crowd and Deputy Rice were?
That's correct.
And then, tell me what you observed. Did you see the wooden door swing open?
I honestly, I did not see the doors come open. When I heard the first gunshot go off, I turned and looked toward the house, and I see Mr. Benny Brown standing. And the way it appeared to me was the stone door was against his right arm as he was engaging the crowd.
Okay, so he was open on to the outside?
The stone door open, if you facing the house, opens. It's a left swinging door, so it opens to your left. The inside door, from what I could tell, was an inward opening left-hand swing door, so meaning it would swing open to your left.
If he's facing Darrell Stave, is he kind of aimed to the left? Or
He's aimed to the left.
Okay, so he's out like that, and you're saying the door is rested up against his arm?
That's correct.
All right, and so what you're describing, he's firing directly into this crowd of people that's right here with Deputy Rice in the middle of it.
That's correct.
All right, and remember how many times he fired?
I do not recall. I know I heard 2 shots, at least 2 shots before I engaged. And once I engaged, I couldn't tell you how many other people shot other than me or how many times he shot.
Okay, and you reached to the passenger side immediately and grabbed her. Was it a Colt hammer?
That's correct.
Stakes 84, is this what you used?
That's it.
All right, and then tell me what you observed after you began firing it.
After I began to fire, Mr. Brown then retreated back into the house. As he retreated back into the house, I went around to the passenger side of my vehicle, which would be behind the passenger side tire and engine block for cover and security. In our profession, we learned that, or are taught, I don't say we learned, but we're taught that the engine block is the safest place to be when there's gunfire. So that's where I took cover.
You said after you fired 6, 7, 8 times,
Yes,
he retreated back in the house.
that's correct.
What, if anything, why is this note where this is page number 28?
That would be the broken glass from the main screen door.
How did that happen?
It would have been from when we returned fire, Mr. Benny Brown.
Did you see that glass shatter?
Yes, I did.
And then after that, he retreated into the house?
That's correct.
And then he was hit. Are you aware that, or do you have any knowledge whether or not you were the one who shot him?
I do now, yes, sir.
Who shot him?
I did.
Age 39. You seen this picture before, Officer Presley?
I have.
You see that patrol car up top?
Yes, that's my patrol car.
Okay. And this is the front door of 545 Barrel
That's correct.
Your testimony is that the blue lights were on at the time.
They were.
Did you have operating cameras in your patrol car?
I did.
Okay. And did you, was it working that night?
It was.
Now the video, when does the video turn on?
It actually turned on prior to our arrival. Once you activate the lights on the patrol car, the cameras usually come on. So at this point, my lights in my car, or correction, my video camera in my car was on as soon as I cut my lights on.
So the lights would activate the video?
That's correct.
Okay. But do you have to manually activate the audio?
You do.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to?
Due to everything happening so fast, I did not.
Now, state, officer publish, state. That's the end card.
What's the number on it?
81, Your Honor.
Yes, right.
Sorry.